Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here. Welcome to today's first panel, Sustainability in TV Production, Many Paths to One Goal. So as Pierre said, my name is Joumana Rushdi. I'm an Associate Sustainability Consultant, and I'm very excited to be here with all of you to moderate this panel and to discuss sustainability in TV production. So first of all, let's give a warm welcome to our panelists. We have a wonderful group here. So we have Steve Nee from Cloudbass. Thank you for being here. And we have Alex Redfern from EVS. Thank you as well. Thomas Pister from Logic Media. And then we have finally Henning Kröger from SWR. Warm welcome to all of you. And so as many of you may know, decarbonization and having sustainability KPIs is no longer just a nice thing to have. It is really becoming a business necessity, and especially here in the EU with the growing regulations and policies to meet the 2030 and 2050 carbon targets that are set by the EU Green Deal, it is becoming an increasingly important topic to discuss. And that's the goal of this panel. The aim is to look into and explore sustainability strategies, challenges, and solutions that are related to the TV production industry, and also to cover sustainability across the entire value chain with the help of your expertise and your insights as well. So I will begin by asking you all a few open questions, and then there will be more targeted questions, but at any point, feel free to add in any inputs that you find are relevant. All right, so let's begin. So my first question to all of you is, what does sustainability mean to you on a business level and perhaps also on an individual level? And what benefits have you observed from incorporating it into these aspects? Anyone can feel free to start and just answer.
I think what sustainability means for me, for us, I think too much we, perhaps as an industry, put a focus on sustainability just to mean power consumption. So we put a lot of focus on ESG, all three topics, ensuring a good balance between, yes, there's the environmental aspects of reduction of power consumption, but the social aspects of DEI, of training, of the social aspects of being a good company to work for, a great place to work, but also the governance, the process, the cybersecurity. So we will always try and put a focus on all three and not take I don't want to say a shortcut, but it's quite American, I think, to say sustainability means reduction of power. And it's like, no, we need to look at the whole spectrum. So that's my sort of opening gambit. That's where I will always come from, is to make sure we don't focus too much on one particular topic, and we try and keep the importance of all three.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with you. Anyone else would like to add anything from your point of view?
For us as an integrator, not as a vendor itself, becomes also really important, because a lot of our customers is really asking for that topic, right? This was also the reason why we decided to join a project. It's called Green Streaming. It is a project from the Ministry of Wirtschaft und Verwaltung, and this is really, really interesting to take a look, right? And there was a lot of possibilities where we can work on. Of course, mostly details, but we have to find out the details, and it's a journey, right? It's not a one step. It's really a journey to think.
Definitely, of course. Yeah. Would you like to add something?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've asked the question, why is it good commercially?
What does
it mean to us commercially?
Exactly, yeah.
Well, we've always been very big in mobile power for our service provision, so taking big trucks out with generators and what have you. So we've been quite unique in the UK that we've done our own power for a lot of big outside broadcasts. And over the last couple of years, we've been challenged more and more by our clients to look at sustainability, specifically carbon, as opposed to sort of the other DEI stuff. And because we've been positioned as an expert in power, that's allowed us to really lead the conversation in terms of sustainability. And obviously, we've just won a big chunk of the Premier League. And I've no doubt that our expertise in power and sustainability has been absolutely at the forefront as to why we have won that. So commercially, it's been great because we've won a massive contract at top flight football, and we're going to be leading the industry in that. But I would say again as well is that the impression I get from clients and colleagues and things like this is sustainability potentially is going to cost you more. It's not. Sustainability is going to save you money, and everything that we've done commercially is showing how we're going to be able to save money, potentially make more money out of production budgets by going a sustainable route. Forget climate change. It's just a better way of doing things.
Exactly. Yeah. And like for me, also sustainability is also about accountability and responsibility, because we want to learn how to build thriving economies and thriving businesses without exploiting the environment, without having a heavy environmental burden, and without burdening the future generations. So it's a big mindset change as well. It's a behavioral aspect as well. And I agree with you that a lot of times it's good for business as well, because to operate sustainably often means to operate in an efficient manner and improve your operation and your system to do better. So it's not just an investment, you also get a lot from it. So from your experience so far, what would you say is currently like the most pressing sustainability challenge in your respective fields? Like today, what is the most thing that requires attention and or is lacking attention and needs more effort?
Contrary to my first point, I think it is the carbon reduction. Like personally, I see two challenges, and one is carbon reduction for sure, which I think we'll probably dig into. The one that perhaps I'll touch on that I see is the legacy of our industry of getting young people into the industry. So the sustainability of us as an industry, if we can't attract talent into it, we're going to struggle to find new, even production and engineering. If we can't get people in, or they're more taken by streaming and like content creation, but they don't want to come into broadcast. As an industry, we could die, and that's something that's a personal thing for me, but it's something that I see as a challenge. And the biggest one is definitely the carbon reduction from my point of view, in a huge way. And that's probably the thing that we should dig into the most. But I see a real personal thing in having Rise here, having things like Rise Academy, getting youngsters into our industry is absolutely key for me.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I would say the same, because carbon reduction is the most important part. Although we, as a broadcaster, have the broad view on everything. As you said, there are more aspects to sustainability than just the ecological part.
Yeah.
But we have to focus on some main aspects. So we're trying to find out, okay, what are the topics where we have the biggest leverage to get something done to reduce the carbon emissions. And so we identified that it's the whole production process of everything that we produce as a broadcaster. And inside this field, I would say transport is one of the biggest aspects, and energy consumption, of course.
Yeah.
So these are the most pressing subjects where we are trying to do something. And then we have to look at some details which might not have such a big effect, but altogether they do. So that's the approach that we have. The biggest challenge is getting everyone on board to join the journey on sustainability.
Okay. I think that that definitely is also true for many other industries as well. I think this is one of the main topics, like to decarbonize the transport sector or the supply chain, and also internally create a new structure, get people on board. So that's definitely relevant to all industries as well. It's a big topic. All right, so now I'd like to move and talk to you more a bit, Steve. So I want to explore now sustainability in the practical reality and during live production. So sustainability is a big part of the way you operate, as I understand it, right? And you've also been challenging the industry with new sustainable approaches in the way you operate. And you wrote an article, right, in 2022, where you challenged that remote broadcasting is not necessarily the best sustainable solution, right? So could you...
My IBC paper.
Yes,
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
So you challenged that concept, saying that remote broadcasting is not the best solution. So could you tell us a little bit more why you would say that, like your reasoning, and what alternatives do you recommend?
So sorry, you're saying remote production, did you say? Sorry.
Yes,
Yeah,
that remote broadcasting
Yeah.
or cloud production is not the best sustainable path.
Well, if you look at any kind of football league,
Okay.
we talk about taking 50, 60 people off site when the whole sport is predicated on transporting people all over a country to go and watch their football team away. It's crazy. So actually, what different broadcasters have different priorities, but what frustrates me sometimes, and I won't name the broadcasters, but there are some broadcasters that just want to fix the problem, and they work with us to say, okay, forget about recording it. How can you fix the problem? How can you go out there and make a real difference? Whereas there are other broadcasters that want us to quantify it, to report it, to measure it, or what have you. It's like we're going to spend more time measuring than we are fixing the problem. And what really frustrates me is when there's so much virtue signaling in this area. So we've done this or we've done that. Yeah, but how is that actually fixing the problem? How are we actually reducing power consumption? How are we actually reducing transport? Actually, transport's going to be solved. Okay. It's not up to broadcast to solve transport. We are going to continue to move around the country and move around the world. I'll give you an example. It's slightly frustrating that I'm here today and I've had to come on an airplane. And the reason I've come on an airplane, I would have brought my Tesla. But the reason I've come on an airplane is because I was in a parish council meeting last night in my village in Derbyshire, in the Midlands in England, and till about 10 o'clock at night. And I landed in Frankfurt before my kids went to school. So that's the modern world. So let's not say that we have to stop doing those things. Let's look at the things that we can do to make a real difference. Okay. And challenged by a particular broadcaster to try and respond to this, I looked at an outside broadcaster, said, right, okay, and I created a quick spreadsheet, which is detailed in that article, I think. And I said, where are the main problems in terms of carbon on a live production? Well, it's crew travel and it's power. Okay, moving the trucks to site doesn't really use much at all. It's power usage and production, particularly generators, and it's crew transport. Well, if we challenge crew to transport themselves in a sustainable way, and EVs are absolutely the thing to do that, they work, then we can still enjoy going to site. I'm quite, as an outside broadcast person, I'm quite anti going to sit in an office somewhere in London. We want to be there. We want to be at the event. That's why I got into broadcast, because I love being at a big live event or even a small live event. Okay. You want to be close to the event. So let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's find ways of doing it that actually make a real difference without virtue signaling. And let's be at that live event, because all of the punters are at that live event too. So why can't we be? So.
Right. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And what have you done to tackle the power generator problem, or to make that more sustainable?
So there's several things. So one of the main things about broadcast power is it has to be robust.
Okay.
So you don't like falling off air. It's not a great thing to do. So this is why we generally don't trust shore supplies or supplies from a venue, because we're going in and out quickly. So if you suddenly turn up and the supply is not good enough, or it fails or whatever, then you're not going to use it, which is why we turn up with big generators all the time. You can absolutely fix that. And part of this journey into the Premier League is the Premier League are going to be putting in power at venues that we can use. So it's them bringing our power expertise to say, how can we back up that power? How can we make sure that if that power goes, the broadcast still carries on? How can we look at our power consumption across the entire broadcast? Yeah. And I'm challenging Alex with his EVSs to say, when we turn up on site and we turn those EVSs on and we rig them and test them, I want to be able to shut them down without turning them off. So we reduce the power consumption of those EVSs. So we don't just look at our power consumption instantaneously, we look at our power consumption across the whole piece. Yeah, but we're doing this kind of circular sustainability thing as well, where we've got 417 solar panels on our base in Derbyshire. We're right in the middle of the country, so we can get to every Premier League ground within 2 hours. Okay. We are working with Volvo. We've ordered 3 EV tractor units for pure electric truck to site. So we're going to charge them from the sun, and then we're going to transport the Premier League trucks to Premier League grounds powered by the sun. But we're also using the batteries in the Volvo tractor units to help back up the broadcast power. So when we're on site, if we have a problem with the shore supply, we've got 384 kilowatts of hours of battery storage in each truck. So it's about a circular argument and joining all the dots to make this whole thing work.
Yeah, that definitely looks like you've tackled it from all the angles possible to create like this holistic way of sustainable operations. Okay, and have you also measured or your power reduction or consumption through using these different techniques?
So I'll give an example. So when I wrote that article, I think we were doing, we'd just taken over a small kind of 4 or 5 camera production in Scotland. And the traditional way of doing that was generating about 5 tons of CO2. By doing what we did, taking out the generators, we're down to about a ton of CO2, I think. So the reductions are really significant.
Okay, so you have quantified it, you have measured it and made sure that this form of operation actually is more sustainable and reduces.
Don't measure it in a difficult way. Don't measure it in a way that requires lots of spreadsheets and lots of calculations and lots of consultants that cost you money. Just measure it in a kind of fag-packy way and measure the change.
All right.
And make it easy to measure. That you can look at a broadcast and go, well, these are the amount of crew that travel to site. That's the method of transport. Well, they make it very simple that you could potentially measure every single broadcast in a very simple way and then measure the change.
And that's your carbon calculator sheet, right?
It's a very simple spreadsheet.
Exactly. Okay, so you just use that simple spreadsheet to account for the different sources of carbon and you analyze that.
You don't need a consultant to do that. Your admin team can do that and can work it out. Look at who's on site and come up with a number, and then you can look at that number and say, how can we reduce that number?
All right. Yeah. Well, that definitely makes sense. Well, thank you so much for that and for sharing insights on how sustainability can play a role during live production. And now I'll move to you, Thomas, to have a bit more, a deeper dive into the technical aspect and kind of tie things together. So you've also conducted a study where you investigated also power consumption from cloud service providers for cloud streaming, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely
So
correct.
could you please also share with us some of your key findings and what are your thoughts on cloud-based production for sustainability, and maybe mention a few points about the benefits and challenges of it?
So, by the way, in general, I'm absolutely with you, right? So we like this job because we like these events and be part of it. But I think in the next years or in the future, we have to rethinking a little bit when it makes sense to go into the cloud, for example, to have a remote production, and when it makes sense to go on-site, right? Our experience with cloud production, we working with a customer together since, I think, 3 years. It's a tier 2 sports production, right? And we really notified that the cloud brings really efficiency and the scalability to that customer. We set up a system in 3 weeks. It's worked really, really fast. And they're doing about 50 games per season only in the cloud, centralized from a gallery in Munich. But the venues are overall Europe, right? And it makes for the customer really the advantage that they don't need to move big infrastructure or the crew to the venue, right? And the setup time is really, really, really low. And I think by the improvement, of course, I have to say latency is also a topic, right? I forget to push it. When we have a sports production, which really ultra latency is needed, and you have to go on site because technology for now is not in that direction that we can reduce it too much. But when it's possible for tier 3 and tier 2, then it makes really sense to go into the cloud, to have a remote production, because we are software-based architectures in the future, right? And
Okay.
Yes.
And just to take it a little bit further and to build on the same topic, what practical steps would you recommend to reduce the power consumption during idle periods of production? Because there are periods during the broadcasting where the system is kind of like still running, but it's like an idle period, and that consumes a lot of power as well, right?
Yeah. this is not only for live production. I think this is in general for everything when you go into the cloud, right? So the strength of the cloud is put on your resources when you need it and shut down when you don't need it. Yeah, it's an easy sentence, but when you take a more in deep into the look in cloud IT infrastructure concepts, when you're using thousands of cloud services and you lost the overview of your source of your resources, then it becomes really a nightmare. So I think one really important topic is automate infrastructure. So really that your infrastructure is deploying based on automation.
Okay.
The second thing is monitoring. It's really important. There are a lot of cloud native tools available where you can monitor your resources in deep and always have a look of that resources which is running, right?
Okay.
Another topic could be storage. I know when I have on-prem storage, I have doubled or 3 times the same file on some different storages. In the cloud, there is different. So you have to take a look that files that you don't need anymore, archive them or delete them. So, and of course, then you can reduce your carbon footprint.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for that. Just to also bring in the social aspect as well, what kind of awareness initiatives do you think would be useful for companies using high-tech sustainable solutions? Like what kind of initiatives can be incorporated to help the crew, for example, operate in a more sustainable way? And of course, any of you can add input to this question. So from your experience, and maybe also Steve, this is relevant to you as well in terms of like how the crew, like does the crew receive any kind of trainings, or are there like awareness programs or initiatives to teach the crew how to operate and think in a more sustainable manner during operation and production?
From my point of view, I think that needs to be led from the top.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
I set an agenda for Cloudbass that we are interested in sustainability. So being at things like this, I do videos and stuff that show our interest in sustainability. We've even set up a renewables company to do installation of domestic and commercial renewables to help feed what we do. So, and I was running a town hall meeting last week where I was getting some pushback from the rigger drivers about these electric tractor units. They're like, well, they can't even get to Scotland. It's like, they will. It'll be fine. We've mapped it out. We know that from Derbyshire, we can get to all the Premier League grounds. Bournemouth is a bit of a stretch. But it's about setting the agenda from the top. If that's important to you as a company, then you need to say that, and you need to take your staff with you. So they know they're coming. And it's good for hiring, because we're seeing a real change in the kind of young people coming through. They're much more aware about sustainability and these kind of all the other DEI kind of things. They're much more interested in those topics. So it makes you a more attractive company to come and work for if you're setting that agenda from the top.
Definitely makes sense. Yeah,
that's true. We see the same, where I say it can be difficult to attract talent into the industry. I think in the broadcast industry, yes, but like hiring software engineers as a vendor, we don't have an issue with that. There's still plenty of software engineers on the market, but they want to know that they're coming into a company. I think very recently, like last year or the year before, we had the first time that software engineers or engineers in general, as they were being hired, were sort of asking us about our sustainability credentials, or they'd taken the time to read our sustainability reports, so that in their interviews, it was like, hey, this is a good sign. They're genuinely interested and they want to come in and know that what they're coming into. So in some cases, you probably need training, education, and to your point, it's just messaging, giving them the same message over and over and over again. This is important. This is why it's important to us as a company. You have to keep giving that message and reiterating it. But actually in the sort of, let's say, bottom-up approach, that's where the youth is, I would say, good, because they are aware.
I think both of you are right. Because when we started in SWR several years ago, it was more like a grassroots movement, some idealistic people trying to change something. But that had the problem that it was always like you go to everyone and ask them, would you please do something too? And that didn't really lead to success. So we said we have to go to the management and identify this as a goal for the whole company. But then you get the problem that not everything that's decided up there ends up in a big company like this down there where it has to be done. So we did a lot of communication and a lot of workshops, and we identified that, okay, who's on the front when we're producing our programs, and so we took almost all the production managers and location managers and did workshops with them to get an awareness for the topic and to give them the practical know-how what to do in order to achieve something. So I think it's both. It has to come from the top and from the bottom.
And have you seen a lot of success with that? Like, have you seen a lot of positive feedback from, like, whether it's top down or the bottom up? Like, has that been working? Has that been creating actual changes towards sustainability, or is there a lot of pushback?
It both helped, I would say, because sometimes when you have to convince someone very much, you can say, okay, we have this decision from the management. That makes it easier, and on the other hand, it makes it much easier for everyone to do it if they are well informed, if they got educated, if they got trained, and they get their own motivation to do it. So it both helped, and I think we achieved a lot. And the good thing is that we can measure it. That's why I already wanted to interrupt, because yes, I agree. We have to take care that it's not getting too bureaucratic, what we do, but we still have to measure it, because that's the only way to identify where are our hotspots, where can we do something effectively, and where have we achieved something, which actions led to a good result. So the measurement is very important, and that's when we look at our productions, we use the carbon calculator tool. And that is the best tool that we can have, because that's giving us the numbers, the measurement, and it shows to us what's efficient, and that's what sustainability is about. It's about efficiency, and that's what you said. Efficiency is not only good to do the right thing or to do something good. It's also very good when you look at the costs and everything. So that's a good way to convince everybody. If you say it's getting more efficient if we do something, then it has good side effects, let's say.
I come at it from the other way. It's good for business first, and it's good for the environment second, and it makes everyone feel warm and fuzzy, because actually the money always wins. Money always wins. And so if we can actually if we can promote sustainability as being good for business,
for sure,
then we'll get the outcome that we want.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of rhetoric at the moment, especially from the political sphere, from Trump and things like this, and Farage in the UK going net zero's nonsense and what have you. Well, that's going to be really damaging. Actually, if we can now tackle it and go, it's about good business sense, then we'll all get the outcome that we want.
That's the same for us. We believe it's good for business, and we're a publicly listed company. You know, for us to get shareholders to invest and things like that, investors want to know that you are sustainable, and it's sustainable in a financially sustainable. But the financial sustainability now comes with literal sustainability. So even at board level, you know, on our board of directors, there's an ESG board member specifically for that, because it's like we need to consider ESG and sustainability that comes with ESG from the very top down, so that shareholders see you are serious about this. It will be good for your business, and the point is the trickle down effect. You know, within the business, the people. We have to find the boosters. You know, there are people everywhere, team members that are energetic about this. And for us, it's been a good exercise in empowerment. We can put, management in place and structure. But actually, if you let the team self-organize and we say to them as management, like, this is what we want to do, they will do it, because they are the energetic people that want to do it. You need some organization, and you need some incentives and things like that. But this is the kind of topic that if you find your boosters, your activators, they will run with it, and they will give you the energy that you need. And they won't convince everyone. What they will do is bring energy to those that want to be convinced. So that's what we've had to put in place, is like an ESG core team made up of members at every level. We have members in every office kind of thing, but they're all volunteers. And if they reach a point where they say, I can't do this anymore, I'm not interested in this anymore, there's always someone else willing to replace them and step in. So it's an interesting way of working, that we do it structurally in the board, in the leadership team. We all have ESG responsibilities in the leadership team.
Yeah.
But the energy comes from the team members that are sort of passionate about it. And actually, that's where the most momentum comes from.
Yeah, that's definitely very, very helpful when it's from the internal team. Like they want to make the change, they want to help drive it forward.
Yeah.
And building on that, I wanted to ask you, like, how do you incorporate also sustainability when it comes to like the product's life cycle? Because you're a manufacturer and producer, and you have long-term ESG goals as well, correct? So how do you incorporate that when it comes to the product's life cycle, whether it's material sourcing, product design, or end-of-life handling, like the full circle?
I mean, literally end to end. We have to go end to end. So we will. If you start right at the beginning, if we say we design a brand new product today. It could be hardware, it could be software. It's going to run, even if it's software, it's going to need hardware to run on hardware.
Yeah.
If we just look at the material sourcing, within our procurement team, there's, let's say, weightings for components. It might be latency, it might be performance, it might be availability, it might be cost. Increasingly, performance, like sort of sustainability performance, is a factor, a weight factor that is increasing. That chip consumes less power. Okay. Look at GPUs. GPUs are just taking more and more and more power. So yes, we need them for some things, but how do we find the balance between performance and power consumption? So we have to make those decisions as part of the design process. And obviously some things you go, look, we need performance. Therefore we have to go with this. Where else can we try and reduce power consumption in other parts of design? With software, I think there's a continuous improvement.
Yeah.
You're always looking for. There's no magic bullet, I don't think, with software. It's always a 1% here, a 2% here, and that needs to be a mindset. And often it comes with. It's not necessarily about reducing the power consumption. It actually comes with how can I get more out of the machine? How can I get more features? How can I make the software do more? So for us, what's interesting, the power consumption may not change, but the amount of features that you get in and the amount of value that you get out should increase.
Yeah.
So we were looking this week at an XT3 that supported 12 channels of 1080i versus an XT Via that supports about 19 to 20 when you include all of the super slow-mo channels of 1080p. And the power consumption has only increased by, well, I can't remember the exact number, but it's an order of magnitude of sort of 100 watts. It's not doubled.
Okay.
But the performance per channel has more than doubled because you've gone from, say, 12 1080i's to about 19-ish 1080p's. So in terms of sort of bandwidth or performance per channel or however you want to say it, it has increased dramatically. And it will be the same when we go to UHD. In theory, when we go to UHD, does that mean a 4 times increase in power consumption? It can't. There's no way we can do that as an industry. So we have to start thinking creatively about how do we are we packing more into the machine, and the power consumption may increase, but if you get 25 channels of UHD in a box, you're probably going to be happy with that, even if the power consumption's gone up a bit more, because you might need fewer boxes or you might need less. It's an interesting conversation to dive into, but if you look at the power consumption and the amount that you're getting out of that piece of machinery, that piece of hardware that you have to manufacture, you have to take all of those things into account. I also think that custom hardware, I'll keep saying this, FPGA specifically, when you look at FPGA versus GPU, there's a significant performance gain and power reduction in bespoke hardware. It also has considerably longer life cycles. We know that people run our servers for 10, 12 plus years when off-the-shelf compute power, CPU, GPU, generally 4 or 5 years, and it's being replaced. So in terms of the recyclability and the life cycle, we can the assets get sweated more, and then even when they come back to us, they are far more recyclable. We can take the boards out and put them on the shelf as spares. We can take components off them. So there's an advantage to hardware specifically, and also when you move to sort of COTS and even cloud, it's a bit of not my problem. Cloud, I don't know how often they replace their machines, and it's not my problem. And if they tell me it's green, I have to accept that it's well green. So there's a nice level of accountability that comes with bespoke hardware, but also even COTS on-prem, I think, where it's like, I bought this machine, I want to get the most out of it. I don't want to get rid of it after 4 years. So we have to look at the end-to-end cycle, and we have to be aware of picking the right technology choice, FPGA, CPU, GPU, and so on, for the application, and then balance between, I would say, performance performance versus power consumption.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's definitely, it's always all about the trade-offs, like the energy trade-off with the infrastructure and then the sustainability performance. It's all about finding the right balance at the end of the day. And could you also share with us a little bit more about some of the internal sustainability initiatives that you do at the company, different ways you try to be sustainable and implementation techniques?
So in 21, we did our first carbon footprint.
Okay.
Probably a bit too much data, a bit too measurable. It was maybe not the simplest thing, but we did the carbon footprint. And what it revealed for us is that it's something like 60-ish%, 63% of EVS's carbon footprint comes from our customers' use of our products.
Yeah.
So the only way we'll reduce our carbon footprint is by helping our customers reduce their carbon footprint, which is good. It's a win-win. It's good for us. It's good for them. Therefore, it's good for business in a way. So that's what we've been working on over the last years, is saying, well, if we want to reduce our carbon footprint, specifically the carbon side, we have to work on helping our customers. Now, that can be difficult because you're right to challenge us, but equally, people buy our equipment, put it in a truck, and we have no visibility of it. We don't know how long it's turned on for.
Yeah.
We don't know how it's used. It's just, we're in a very fortunate position there that people buy it and use it. So we have to kind of go with the sort of thought leadership approach, but we need more measurement back as well. So that's where the measurement becomes important.
But can I ask the question?
Yeah.
You're saying it's a lot of the carbon footprint comes to how we use it.
Yeah.
What are you measuring there?
Well, so when we make a carbon footprint, for example, we have to make assumptions about how you use our equipment. If you as a truck vendor buy a server, you're not running it 24/7.
No.
You might be running it, 8 hours a day, 3 days a week.
Accounting for what we're using.
We have to.
But then we're accounting for that as well, so we're double accounting.
Yeah.
Well, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So if we look at the whole thing, we're double accounting.
Double.
This is what I mean. It's nonsense.
Yeah, it is. And this is the problem. It is.
So when we start measuring, it's just because it's nonsense. It's like, actually, let's get everyone in the Tesla. We'll save a boatload of carbon straight away.
Yeah. And they're the things that we're sort of learning as we go, is how we are double accounting. So it is a double win.
Who decided that we should double account?
This is where you get into the idea of the consultants, let's say, where the consultants are saying, well, yeah, this is the way you have to do it. And as a company, we as a stock listed company, we have to go by the rules, the reporting, those kind of things.
Who made the rules?
I know. We have
They're nonsense.
Yeah, they are. And when we see those kind of things where it's important that we have to follow these rules or these corporate rules or these guidelines or whatever, and then you follow them and you dig in and you unpick them and go, well, of course you're making a carbon footprint that uses our equipment, and we have to take it out. Of course we're double accounting, but that's for us, in our world, that's the rules, and it's crazy.
But I guess thank you for asking that question, because this just highlighted a bit of a broken chain.
Yeah,
because the most important thing when it comes to carbon accounting is to connect the whole production chain and the whole value chain. Like, as a producer, you need the input of the supplier. You also need the input of the user, so that you can complete the data in order for you to get the holistic picture.
Yeah.
So do you guys at any point contact users for their data?
Yeah, we do, and we try and get as accurate data as possible.
Okay.
But again, like in a broadcast center, it's probably going to run 24/7. It shouldn't, but it does, and most equipment is turned on and turned off 6 years later. That's kind of how it works in broadcast centers. It's the trucks that are interesting because of how often do you use them? Is it 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day? Is it 3 days a week or 4 days a week?
I can guarantee that my trucks are not drawing any power or generating any carbon as they're driving down the motorway, especially if they're driven by electric tractors.
Yeah. So we do contact customers, and we do have like customer groups where we try and get where we can make informed assumptions about the data, never accurate but informed.
Yeah.
And what our realization has been is how can we continue to make that more accurate? Because we did the second carbon footprint based on last year's data, and it actually decreased. It went from 63% to 55 or something. I can't remember the exact number, but it's about 55% because the data was more accurate. And so that's what we see constantly is the more accurate data that we can get, the better the reporting, and probably then we would be able to say, well, we don't need to double count because you guys have got a carbon footprint, but there are plenty of others that don't have carbon footprints that are using. So we have to account for it. It's really weird, but it's a really odd position to be in. But the reporting that we have as a stock listed company, we have to produce a carbon footprint. It has to be done in a certain way.
Yeah,
we have to do that.
Like, especially when it comes to like the scope 3 emissions, it's a bit tricky because you have the upstream and the downstream that you need to factor for.
And most of our emissions
I know data collection is always the trickiest part when you're doing accounting, because
I have no problem with saving money by doing things sustainably. The problem I've got is the reporting and who's going to pay for that. So certain broadcasters want more reporting.
Okay.
Well, they can pay for it then, because they won't give us any more money for the hire of our EVSs or camera channels or whatever, and yet they still seem to expect us to jump through these hoops without being prepared to pay. We can fix things and make a change and save carbon because it's good for business.
Yeah.
It's the reporting, especially when I find out that we're double accounting for things and no one's joining the dots and going, this is how we should actually do it.
I think the positive is that from an accountability perspective, at least we are both trying to be accountable, and more and more people are at least trying to be accountable and be transparent and produce carbon footprint reports and sustainability reports and things like that. And that can only be a positive thing. The fact that we know that the way that we will reduce our carbon footprint is by reducing yours, that's the data that we can act on. We have a carbon footprint. How can we reduce it? We have to work with customers. So that's a really positive thing. And to your point, I agree with you. The reporting is like, I don't care about the reporting. I do. I have to. But at the same time, it's like, how do we solve the problem?
Yeah.
What do we need to do? And that's where it's like, what products can we bring to market? How can we lower the power consumption? How can we get more channels per box or higher density or whatever the result is?
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, it's never easy. This is definitely a work in progress. Like, it's not going to be perfect from the get-go, especially like carbon reporting. Now it's becoming more and more mandatory. So I think companies are also still trying to figure it out. There are a lot of broken chains that still need to be connected, especially when it comes to data collection. So I think, as you said, like, it's always good that companies are starting to take accountability, but of course this will take some time to refine the whole process. So I'd like to put a pin on that, because I know we can talk about this forever, and move a little bit more to you, Henning, and talk more about sustainability in the organization. And so you've talked about how SWR also does a top-down green strategy, kind of, right? And you've already done a lot of pushes to kind of change things internally. Could you tell us a little bit more about this green consultant program that you have, right? Like, what do they do? How does it work? And do you have, like, if you could also share like an example of a successful sustainability initiative that had a measurable impact?
Yeah, I mean, SWR was like a pioneer in this field. We started the whole initiative and the green shooting working group, which developed the so-called ecological standards in Germany. So this gives you a set of actions that you can apply to your productions, which are hopefully, they are effective in reducing the carbon emissions of a single production. And it's also a must-have in these standards that you do the carbon calculation and you get a carbon balance sheet. And so that's the good thing. We can measure that it was effective, that we did it. So when we look at Tatort, for example, which is the famous Sunday evening crime format, 90 minutes feature film in television. So when we look at that, we started the initiative and we could find out that we could reduce the CO2 emissions by around 40%, I would say. So I'm always careful with concrete numbers, but a colleague of mine once calculated it and said it's like 7 hot air balloons full of CO2 that we are saving when we're producing according to the standards. So that's, I would say, a success story, but what we are doing is always like a product carbon footprint for a single big production, and that's where the standards are coming from. And our challenge now as a broadcaster is to apply these same standards to everything that we do.
Yeah.
And everything that we do is usually not the big one feature films. It's like a lot of magazines and news and studio productions in-house. And so it's getting a bit complicated to get this product carbon footprint and applying single measurements on one production to everything that we do.
Yeah.
And so we identified that there are some of the actions in the standards that we have to look at for the whole company. Because if we, for example, what we did at SWIs, we completely changed we switched to green energy. And so that's, if you put it into the carbon calculator, you get a massive number, which is the difference between the normal energy mix in Germany and the green energy. So we could save a lot of carbon there. And we implemented the rules of the ecological standards in our rules for travel in the company or in the whole ARD, because, SWR is part of the big ARD. And so we can tick this box and say, okay, the travel rules are, you can say, check, it's done for every production.
Okay.
So that's the approach that we are trying to do now to make it simpler. But then there are new problems, like you said, double calculation. If we look at every single production and look at how much office space is used and everything else, and then you do the whole corporate carbon footprint and you measure it again, you have a double calculation again. So hopefully, if it all gets more standardized in the future, then and we get the corporate carbon footprint, then we can maybe make the carbon calculation for each production much easier, because we know we can leave things out because they are done in the whole.
Yeah, definitely. I guess, at the end of the day, it's all about the trade-offs you can make and finding a good balance between your operation, your sustainability, and your business needs. And so I would like to thank you all so much for all of your wonderful insights. I would love to talk more and more about it. It's an endless topic, and I think we've explored sustainability from multiple different angles across the value chain, and hopefully we've given the audience a great insight into sustainability, and hopefully there will be more talks like this in the industry to kind of move the needle forward with sustainability and incorporate more collaborations also to kind of keep the whole chain working and have the whole thing working. So thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for your time and your insights. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.